We're live.
Well, welcome to one and all. Bienvenidos. Here we are in August.
We're
The
live.
middle of August. And what a fine day to be with you all on Cultivating Voices live poetry for the third of our 5 Sunday readings this month. I'm Sandy Yannone, and I'm your host for today, and the author of Boats for Women from Salmon Poetry. I'm very happy to, I'm aware that some of my salmon siblings are in the audience, the live audience here in Zoom today. So welcome to you and to everyone else who has joined us here. We have an audience from a number of countries today that will be reading, and I'm joining you today from Olympia, Washington, right here in my kitchen where I've been gardening this morning and picking cucumbers. I want to also give a shout out to those of you who are watching us live right now from Facebook for today's reading, which is our wild card live open mic. Folks signed in just before we went live, and these are our featured readers for today. I'd like to just remind everybody, I know that you all have so many options still for virtual readings, and I'm deeply, deeply appreciative of you, of folks returning week after week to our reading series as we seek to offer truly unique combinations of writers. And in the spirit of that, I want to give a shout out and thanks to our new book showcase readers from last Sunday. If you didn't see them, Lila Way, Alice Petway, and Julie Marie Wade. It was quite a stellar reading, and if you missed it, you can watch their just truly wonderful display of poetry on the recordings on our Cultivating Voices live Facebook page, or as well on our YouTube channel. And thank you very much to Don Krieger for providing those opportunities for us to have recordings and for us to be able to watch them live and on recordings for those of you who can't join us on Sundays. Well, we have a very enthusiastic audience on our Facebook page of we're approaching 3,000 members. That doesn't mean we get 3,000 people that come to our readings, but we have so many members that post during the week and share things with us, and different combinations of you come together every week, every Sunday for our international, intersectional, and intergenerational readings. The chats, I like to remind folks, they're live over there in Facebook, and we have a live chat here in Cultivating Voices in Zoom. So please send all the love to our readers. And today, first up, I want to remind folks we will have a dozen, a wild dozen of poets today, and reading 6 minutes each. So grateful for all of you showing up to read, and thanks to those of you who've come to listen. And first reading us today, joining us over from Ireland, is Anne McDonald.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and I'm so delighted to join you again. And for today, I thought I would read a poem that has come directly out of Cultivating Voices. This time last year, I joined you around about this week or last week or maybe next week, and I met a poet from New Hampshire called Barbara Bald, and we have been writing poems on a weekly basis across the water for the entire pandemic. And some of it was miserable, some of it was happy, but it's been a hugely inspiring exercise. We met here. We both read poems about coats, and we just connected. But anyway, so in honor of that year, big thanks to you all at Cultivating Voices, and myself and Barbara now have a whole chapbook ready to go. This is one of the poems where we shared where we came from. And it's an I am poem, and mine is called Fish and Shamrocks. So here we go. I'm just going to read the one poem. I think it's enough. I am from a long line of labour voters and men of the sea, fed on fish and cabbage grown in patches under nets to stop the caterpillars, and parsley for white sauce picked on Sunday mornings, fog warnings to keep the ships safe. I'm from the keepers of hens and pigs and greyhounds, walking dogs in winter frost, hand wrapped tight in leather leads, the dog too fast for my young legs, but far too slow to win a race. Their bellies full of soda bread fed by Mam. She said it was a disgrace that skinny greyhounds were always starving. I'm from paper chains strung from ceilings every Christmas and apples dunked in ice cold water for Halloween. Pious attempts to say the family rosary every spring erupted into laughter on the cold tiled floor, and tiny knees ached with needles and pins, and the same knees creaked later in confession boxes, making up sins. Bad enough for a few Hail Marys, but not for a decade of the rosary. Lion was always a fine balance, and a single Our Father was a definite win. I'm from a family of immaculate Catholic conceptions. I was found down the back of Granny's sofa, my sister in the aforementioned cabbage patch, and from a front door always on the latch. I'm from the family who picked shamrock from the roadside with bone-handled knives in March before walking to church to sing to St. Patrick, who was apparently glorious. I'm from a family that gives a name at birth and then changes it to something totally unconnected. Cecilia Maria Goretti became Sandra, Margaret became Peggy, and I was out of luck. I got stuck with just the one name, Anne. I'm from a garden carved from briars, inch by thorny inch, until it became a sea of green, pockmarked with daisies in the summer, and laden with the smell of whitethorn and wild roses. Winter smelled of turf and damp hedges. Water cracked with ice in a pump that had to be drawn in early morning, no running water, until the well that nearly killed our neighbour was dug, and without warning, gushed to fill the hand-dug hole. The ladder barely hauled him out. I'm from roads that ribboned fields alive with rabbits and the shout of farmers herding cows, and woods where crows held court and towering chestnuts, making vows of eternal loyalty to each other. We peeled off the spiked green overcoats to touch the satin fruits collected into buckets, counted out in games that had no real purpose other than the company of kids in mucky clothes who planned the world they would inhabit when they took it. Thank you.
It is always a joy, of course, to have you and McDonald with us here on the program reading. And thank you for honoring the anniversary of your reading and also sharing the connection of how you have met other poets and utilized that connection to generate more poetry. Well, it will be really fun if the both of you would come on sometime and read, and maybe do a shared set or something of your response poems together, one to another. Would be really interesting to hear that relationship through poetry developing. Thank you again. Well, next we go from where I am here to the north to hear from David Brydges, and Susan Abbott will be following David. Thank you and welcome, David.
I forgot to
unmute
myself.
There you go. You're good. Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy, and your team of Kim and Don for helping to maestro this multinational meetup of poetry today. So I've got 3 poems to read. 2 are on the theme of death, But the last one is an oddly optimistic one to artists. And this is dedicated to all dog lovers out there. Tales of Two Dogs. Love is a four-legged word, unknown. Part 1. My friend leaves a voice message, teary and hurtful. She had to put her dog down, is devastated, distressed. As a child who loved animals, her family always had a pet. Also, she canceled being at a poetry event the next day. I inform her I've met a new poet who's keen to read. They worked on Canada Day, so got a day off, which coincided with the Seniors Without Walls event. Sometimes we lose and gain simultaneously. The right hand holds a moment while the left hand lets it go. Part 2. I share a story of my friend's losing her dog, and my new poet friend tells me her dog story. It died on the morning of Christmas Day. Arctic winds, invisible to the eye, but not the heart, blew its cold news under the pine tree presents, the mistletoe, Christmas cards, and very cold turkey dinner. Tragedies, skin of life, ripped from our bleeding bodies, drowning in a pool of red pain, destroy any sane sanctity of another joyful holiday. A cold silence passes over the family dog, woofing no more. Part 3. We have bonded deeply with pets during the pandemic. They have been unwavering furry companions through these lonely stay-at-home times when human touch was severely restricted. Someone said they love us more than we love ourselves. We have been gorilla glued to animal affection. Crazed with the cold reality of loss, two dog tails wag no more, like snow falling on a summer day at the beach. Thank you. And there was a wildlife death near a lake where I live, and my sister is a reporter, and she wrote a couple of stories on it, and I took many of these details for this poem. A loon, the great northern diver. 26 days, loon mother warmly nursed 2 eggs. It was not an ideal place, but predators had forced her to build a marshy nest between 2 public beaches. Passerby tourists took pictures telling my sister to F off when asked to respect the mother's privacy. Such arrogance makes your brain go loony. 2 earth angels assist the watery fowl. The beach manager, out for his morning swim, discovers a headless body, feathers, bloodied ground. Buries remains away from the scene of the slaying. Suspicions an otter who aggressively attacked a dog on a dock is returning for the eggs. The second human angel sees chicks' heads poking from its cold shell, places the eggs in a box covered with a soft towel, travels 100 miles to a wildlife haven. 1 egg did not hatch, but the other chick is eating minnows and doing well. Named Luna, she's learning to swim, will eventually be released nearby when she can dive for fish. Loons can dive 180 feet, swim underwater for 15 minutes. If there were an aquatic Olympics, the loon would take gold medals for diving without a splash, swimming with powerhouse speed. Father loon finds the nest empty, day after day wailing, swimming alone, searching the shoreline for his life mate. A memorial of 11 crying loons arrives, mourning the loss of its clan member. Chick Luna doesn't return to Bass Lake Wilderness Sanctuary. Forever orphaned, a nocturnal chorus wail fails to haunt the waveless lake. As the moon's silver shadow misses passing over its favorite lunar singer. This poem was inspired by my online friend, Jill Badonsky, who's a San Diego-based poet, painter, and creativity coach. And she had a newsletter, and the theme of the newsletter was imperfection for artists. So this was my response. Perfectly off. To Jill, the jack of all raids on the less obvious. Art is the stored honey of the human soul. Theodore Dreiser. Poets are benevolent beekeepers. Be yourself and discover your own buzz, not any imitation, but a honeyed tongue, melting sweet minds with crazy wisdom callings. Giving up is living up to no one's standards, but the playful, unrestrained, orgiastic. Contrarians, imperfectionists, perfectly off artists, wickedly whimsical, painting the poetic with passionate imprecision. Like the roaring laugh of a Zen master when his student adjusts a crooked frame of picture. He follows, straightens it back to its crookedness. No hand divine or human needs to smooth over rough edges of perception. Give it spatial freedom to be just as it is. High flying, low flying, creativity, it's all the same. Authentic trip when you book your kamikaze ticket without a travel agent babysitting. What is supposed to be is to just be, constantly curious, venturing to find that stored honey and share it wildly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David. As a person who lost a dear companion, furry companion during the pandemic, I really could relate to the first poem in particular. And so thanks for being here and sharing all three of your poems. Always great to have you with us. And next we have Susan Abbott. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Sandy. It's great to be here. I've been working on a manuscript, and it's called The Abiding Spark, which I hope to have published sometime by this time next year. And in it are going to be several villanelles. I've taken to the villanelle, like I don't know what. So anyhow, I'm going to read a few of those today. First one is called Escape, and it's for my mother. She packed up her babies and she ran, determined to never look back, took a train far away from that man. The marriage wasn't according to plan. He wasn't so great in the sack. She packed up her babies and she ran. Mean and abusive, he got out of hand. The broads and booze behind her back. She took a train far away from that man. Under the gun, you do what you can. Shift the gears to divorce on fast track. She picked up her babies and she ran. Leave all the knitting, don't wash that pan. Don't worry about what you may lack. Take a train far away from that man. To hell with the homestead free land, that dream of Alaska's outback. She picked up her babies and she ran. Took us away from that man. And this one's called Vanished. The dusty smell of sweetgrass woven in her hair, and when she went missing, we looked for her about everywhere. Bus stops, truck stops, in the village square. Old Coyote heard the snakes there hissing, the heady smell of sweetgrass in her hair. Disappeared just like that. It gave us a scare. Did she run off with that guy we saw her kissing? We looked for her just about everywhere.
Susan, you muted yourself, so come back on and start up that. Yeah, there you go.
Am I good? Sorry about that. This is the vanished woman, the vanished person. The smell of sweetgrass woven in her hair, and when she went missing, we looked for her just about everywhere. Bus stops, truck stops, in the village square. Old Coyote heard the snakes there hissing, the heady smell of sweetgrass in her hair. disappeared just like that. It gave us a scare. Did she run off with that guy we saw her kissing? We looked for her just about everywhere. We scoured the bars, the brothels upstairs, followed up every help wanted listing, the heady smell of sweetgrass woven in her hair. Did she stumble on the bridge that led nowhere, stolen, murdered? How far was she drifting? We looked for her just about everywhere. Did she wear a bright red dress, a naked glassy stare? Did Uncle take her fishing? The heady smell of sweetgrass woven in her hair. We looked for her just about everywhere. Rivers, Villanelle, the river. She walks undaunted through the pines. A spotted horse is at her side, her eyes the various colors as the sun shines. In the dawn's shadow, the light combines a coolness that turns her green-eyed as she walks undaunted through the pines. And yet she knows the country's song lines. The iris will not subside, her eyes the various colors as the sun shines. She hears the river and sees that it winds to where it is dammed by a landslide. She walks undaunted through the pines. She sees waters rise beyond its confines, the banks pushed by a river grown wide, her eyes the various colors as the sun shines. The river now carries the tailings of mines, mercury, arsenic, and cyanide. She walks undaunted through the pines, her eyes the various colors as the sun shines. And this next one is called Nautilus Girl. And Sandy, I gotta say, it's a little bit inspired by your girl who catches everything. I heard you read that at another event with Elizabeth Bishop and for the collectibles. And I said, I like that rhyme scheme and I like the girl and the curl and the whirl. So here was my poem. It's called Nautilus Girl. And anyhow, Nautilus Girl. When into the core of you I want to curl, and through each chamber come to know how love is a spiral, my Nautilus Girl. How your shape lifts us up in its muscular swirl, twists of tornadoes, the symmetry of snow. When into the core of you I begin to curl. Magnetic impulse from the grain to the pearl. Listen to the waves, let the trade winds blow. How love is a spiral, my Nautilus Girl. Love be numinous and make right the world. Each sacred room we come to outgrow. Still into the core of you I want to curl. Together to swim through a tempestuous world, all joys and trials that life will bestow. How love makes a spiral, my Nautilus Girl. An ocean of need, the tides will unfurl. The moonlight sees to the water below. When into the core of you I want to curl. We make love our spiral, my Nautilus Girl. And then one more. This is called Madame Calmont. Respectable woman, respectable older lady. Madame Calmont, I don't fuss about sags and bags on the eyes. I have only one wrinkle and I'm sitting on it. The secret of beauty is funny and wise. I love to drink wine, eat my cakes and my pies, love my whole life, and from where I sit, I don't fuss about sags and bags on the eyes. Neither do I fuss about the arms and thighs. Old legs of iron, now rusty and buckled a bit. The secret of beauty is funny and wise. Take pleasure in life whenever it does arise. Love a good long pull on my cigarette. I don't fuss about sags and bags on the eyes. I took up fencing beginning in my 80s, learned something new for the fun of it. The secret of beauty is funny and wise. At 122, I appreciate how the time flies. I have only one wrinkle and I'm sitting on it. I don't fuss about sags and bags to the eyes. The secret of beauty is funny and wise. Thank you.
Wow, what an vast offering of villanelles. Amazing, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing them. And of course, I recognized a little bit of the homage in the Nautilus Girl, although I loved what you did with curl and unfurl. I think you surpassed the girl who catches everything. And thank you for writing a poem inspired by another poem. Always good. All right, well, next we have Jeff Kaliss. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Sandy. Hello to you, and thanks to you and to Kim and to Don, and hello, everybody. With the wild card, I think I pick up an opportunity to share something about an eye examination that I actually had last week. So this poem is called I Care. I got here for my eye exam an hour early. You didn't see the time move, I told myself, so while you have to wait, make it make a poem. And started in that daydream after lunch when eyes closed, you saw Mom, saw her smiling in your smile, which you gave back, although she's passed to spirit. What you keep, you wake with, to your present afternoon, your eyes now open to what they want to watch. Yes, I see the height my daughter's eyes have grown to as she makes her way through law school. Those eyes still brown, still watching me talk. I'll be driving down to Dr. Denny, sweetie, to have my eyes examined. I hope it's good, Dad, she smiles, and then sits down looking at her laptop where law firms look at her and she hopes for a hire. You drive the streets peering through progressive lenses. When you're going to get somewhere, you look at who is in your way and how to get around them. It's time that makes us move through space, or is it vice versa? The city's line prescribed your go, the lush of trees and awe of sky, observe your purpose, want your watching too. The green lights, the red lights, starting and stopping and swerving in between till I park on Turk Street, hide my face below my eyes under a pictorial pandemic mask, to walk by recent tents of hard luck homeless who peek at my protected purpose on my way to covered care they probably don't have, their vision stalled, exposed, unprotected. Insured, I stroll inside the Pacific Vision Foundation building, glide up to the Denny Eye and Laser Center, swanky, high-tech, and polite. A team of young women in blue, the first of who informs me I'm there an hour early, and I default to poetry, sitting, writing. Like a fond, proud parent, I watch my brain and hand play in cursive on the paper, jumping meters, seeking meanings. Time fills itself with stanzas, with text from a darling fellow poet, until I'm summoned in by Dr. Ngo, no, it's pronounced no, who shines into my seeing, has me look at small block letters, rates my eyes as 20/20 right and 20/25 left in 2021. He pops in the dilation drops, so Dr. Denny will see more of me, and has me wait and write again till the poetry grows fuzzy. What happens to a poem when it isn't written? Above my mask, I can still see office curtains closed against the crowded light outside, see the technician's button blueness closed against her breasts, but is there seeing where there is no sight? They keep us so that we can see each other, not knowing what it is we're looking at. I'm ready now for Dr. Denny, senior pilot of this mission. He perceiving on my mask the imprint of a scene from Andrew Wyeth. Christina gazing at her world across a fawn Maine meadow. I tell him of the poem meant for her and Wyeth, and for what I saw in them that I set words to. The doctor says he'd like to see that also. He looks in my expanded eyes with informed insight and finds no worry there. So I'm dismissed with more politeness to take care and come back again next year, no worse for wear, they hope. Put back on Turk Street, my pupils widened to relentless wonder of the sinking sun. I amble past the people of the street. I'm squinting at their blurry squalor, documented by my heart. I put myself behind my wheel, put my eyes behind some darkened shades, start out and make out what I can, guided by my memory of this city, like driving through a dream where watching takes on guessing, and you hope you get to where you think you should be going, into and among the shapes you've learned to call your life. Thank you all for listening.
Wow, what an homage to sight and insight. Make sure you take a look, Jeff, at the comments in that line. Time fills itself up with stanzas. I mean, what a great use of time, of course, and that's what we do as poets. So thank you for illuminating that for us today, and thanks for being here. Great to see you. Well, next we have joining us from Scotland. Again, we've got as David said, we have such a wonderful multinational group today. Is Cait O'Neill McCullagh? Hello.
Hello, Sandy. It's great to be joining you. The light is fading here. I've had to keep adjusting my desk lamp because although Jeff is maybe, I can't remember if he's approaching autumn or summer, but anyway, we had summer one day in May and it's getting a lot colder and darker here. But so it's just so lovely to be with you, and what I thought, this is the first time I'm reading it, Cultivating Voices, although I've been following you for quite a while. I thought I'd read two of the first poems I wrote, and I wrote them last year. Poetry started to peel from me, I think, as it did for many people, because we found ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic, and also, I suppose, brought closer in many ways, although community transmission became something to be virally feared. In fact, the transmission of community across the world has been quite astounding in this time through events like this. And so I was inspired by something that happened last year in the context that I think touched the whole of the world. But particularly here, I live near a village which is named after plantations in Guyana, which were started by people who founded the village in the area that I live in, out of the highland clearances here, and who saw an opportunity, sadly, in Atlantic slavery. And it brings us very close, I think, to some of the themes that have been writ large around the world in this last year. So this is a poem called Breathe. A man cries, one voice on a crowded street, on the bitter, beaten earth. One voice and 28 cries. Can you hear him? He cries out his last breath of life, his body and his blood and his breath, and you crush him. And the world watches as you kneel and kneel. And it seems so easy to empty out a life, like you would let out the air from a tire. 28 cries, 577 seconds. I can't breathe. How can he? You have him under your knee. He cries, we cover our mouths. Someone's precious child cries, Mama, Mama, help me, help. How can we breathe? We watch until he cannot cry. This should not be so easy, but you kneel so hard, and it is so easy to take away breath and to pour out a body here on the side of the road, like you had let out a tire. But we can kneel and we can raise our voices. And can you hear them on this bitter, beaten earth, on every street and shore, voices pouring out, sharing out the breath of life. You see it and you can hear it, and we can say it, we will breathe. And another poem thank you, another poem that came at the same time. I should say I'm a straying archaeologist. One of the things I do is archaeology, a little better maybe than poetry. And I was very moved by stories which are again touching the whole of the world of children's bodies buried, secluded, secreted in places where we still are living the legacy of our colonial pasts. So there's a poem called Birth. To remind me that the sun will return, I paint ochre onto your body. This unruly lull of limbs and hair, and I chew the deer's hide soft to make a shroud of teeth and hooves for you, birthed but never born. Wings clipped at your moment of flight, I bury you among the mounds. They circle this turf like beads of coal. Your body I give to oil and to quartz, to this necklace of jet and bog, cradled upon the wing of a swan, and stories swarm like beetles from your grave, carved between the care of the earth and the stars, torn from this throat, tarred with tears and dirt. And they fall like arrows from a bow, and they tell of swans and geese and hungry women who hunt, and each tale is like a fawn lost in the forest. In the quietening, we hear its pulse. People who will always be poets will search the whole world's ebb for your stories. They will tell how the fire ochre sun opened up your wings and how you fanned its flames all about the earth. Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm so glad to have had you join us today for your first and what I hope will not be your last reading with us. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you had mentioned that you thought, well, I'm probably a better archaeologist than I am a poet. Well, if the poetry is any indication of that connection, I think you're a damn fine archaeologist. Come back and read again. Beautiful, beautiful work and poignant. Thank you. Well, folks, we decided we had a few people that were on the wait list, and if we go 6 minutes apiece, we can get everybody in within the 90-minute framework for the reading that we like to slot in. So we're going to do that to honor those folks. And next up, so please do stick to those 6 minutes, and I will try to keep my remarks short as well. Next, joining us from right around the corner here from where I am, a good friend of mine who read with us very early in Cultivating Voices. Always a pleasure to have Larry Kerschner with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Sandy, Kim, and Don. Like Anne, I developed a friendship with a poet because of Cultivating Voices. Fergus Hogan and I have become great friends, and he wrote a great foreword for my recent collection. The title is Selected Poems 1970 to 2020. So it's 50 years of odds and ends. So first poem I'm going to share is called Lexi. When my granddaughter was diagnosed with leukemia at age 3, I thought of broken children I had seen in Vietnam and Afghanistan, and other dark-haired children dying from depleted uranium-induced leukemia in a dusty hospital in Basra, Iraq. Love and memory and mortality can easily tie you into knots. Now she is 5 years cancer-free. Her full, healthy face is becoming that of a young woman. She is one of the children who gets to live. And this is called Brother John. Firstborn, one of 7 brothers and 4 sisters, you distanced yourself from the family. You disappeared before you disappeared, holding to your whiskey and your room full of baseball cards. There are drawers and piles of clothes, a prosthesis only of use to a one-legged man, covered in dust, cobwebs on your cobwebs. Gary and Rick went first, falling out of our story too early. Being dead is always the easy part. Remember well that time when I had a pustular boil on the point of my chin and you hit me with your fist. We both had Red Ryder sweatshirts. Yours was blue and mine was red, each of us fighting to be king of the hill. I sometimes wondered if that priest you spent occasional weekends with when you were 10 might have molested you. So far as I know, you never found love, although you were married briefly to a woman who frequented the same bar as you. Your neighbor said his children used to be afraid of you, but his grandchildren loved you. I saw the depression and anger in your situation, but I was still hurt when you accused me of being a crook who only wanted to take your money. Stage 4 cholangioadenocarcinoma with metastasis throughout your liver is a hard message to hear or grasp. They just called to say that you had slipped into agonal breathing, resting with 15 milligrams of morphine each hour. What were you thinking when you asked me to be the executor of all your earthly possessions? In the end, a bewildered shadow, vaguely reminiscent of what you might have been in the world. Rest, brother, rest. And let's see. When my daughter came out to me, you were the first of my children to find your way to who you are. I know you were unsure about what my response would be, since I also was coming slowly out of my Pentecostal wander. But love of you clearly outweighed any lifeless dogma. I have loved the women who you have loved, even though some of them didn't deserve you. I have gained another daughter through you, even though you and she have gone separate ways. You once pointed out to me that life is just a bowl of Larrys. I have learned that to know poetry, I must write poems. You seem to have learned that to know love, you must love. It's for my daughter, Karen. And finally, my last poem, my final poem, I won't know when I have written it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. You'll see I wrote in the chat. I'm looking forward to getting you for a new book showcase in the 2022 season, because we're booked through the year. So thanks for giving us a preview of the new collection. And I'm also very, I'm so glad to hear these stories today, in particular of the ways that, you know, as the time has gone on through this program, that people have really made lasting connections with each other that's influenced the work. So it's just so gratifying to keep hearing those stories. Thank you for sharing them. I wish Fergus had been here today to hear you read, but we'll have the two of you together to in another time. Well, next we have Kim Ports Parsons, again, person with us from those early weeks. So thanks for, I'll always look forward to when we get to hear you read, because you do so much work behind the scenes to support everybody else.
Thank you, Sandy. I just want to second what you just said about the community building here and what a gift it has been in my life and what a grateful heart I have. So peace, love, and poetry to you all out there. I'm going to read two poems, starting with the sonnet. It's summertime in Virginia. I have a big garden. I'm canning. I just canned tomatoes this morning. And every time I'm in the steamy kitchen, my mother is right there with me, looking over my shoulder. I grew up with that. And so these two poems are about summer gifts she gave me in my life. And I'm just feeling her with me, and I want to evoke her in my poetry. Cool glass of water. A blizzard of fuchsia speckles all down my shirt and Mama's apron. Rivulets of sweat down the left side of her face, and my legs stuck to the cracked vinyl seat, the kitchen getting hotter by the minute. But we're grinning like damned fools over 8-pint jars of wineberry jam, made from the berries we picked together while ticks and poison ivy inched up our trousers, and we sang She's Coming Round the Mountain and who knows what all at the top of our lungs, hoping to scare away the snakes. I am 10, and I am spading up the last gobs from the kettle with the wooden spoon. And I am in love with her, and if I could, I would drink that memory like a cool glass of water every day of my life. Peach season is upon us. It's glorious. This is called The Poetry of Pie. The recipe card is brown and yellow and blurred. Touchstone, fingered over and over. Smeary conversations with the memorized words, written when I was still practicing how to form an A or an O, to loop or not, still undecided. Across lined paper. A bowl of peaches, warm as wool blankets from the July air, newspaper spread under the tin bowl, the Coriolis of thumb and knife against skin, the peels collapsed in a pile, juice crying down my arm, the slices repeating the sunrise. The old cutter works the crumbs, ice clinks against the tablespoon, the pastry comes together. From the kitchen of Jeanette, I dutifully inscribed. Sitting next to her at the brown formica table, her elbows floury, fruity splatters on her apron's front, showing me when the peach is truly ripe, the skin will pull completely away in sheets, revealing the perfect yellow glistening joy of the flesh. Sugar, but not too much. Cinnamon and nutmeg generously sprinkled, a pinch of salt, tapioca granules like snow. The maceration in minutes, the swoon-worthy smell. The shuttlecock of the pin as it rolls back and forth, center to edge, this way, that, till there is more than enough to meet the needs of the pan, the crockery one with the chipped rim, then the dough gently knuckled into the base, trimmed, fluted, filled to a mound. Always I forget, then drop dabs of butter with crusty hands, weave the top, hiding the strays under the protective arms of the lattice. She only perspired on the left side of her face and used her apron's hem to dab her brow, not to get flour in her hair, to keep going, the baking, the washing up, the fraying hot pads on the vinyl, the white cabinets wiped down, a car pulling into the driveway. Sliced tomatoes marching down an oval platter, clothes brought in from the line, just a summer day, the evening cooling, likely bad news on the TV, likely storms tomorrow, likely sisters in a squabble, combing out knots to canned laughter after dark. But silence in the room when the slices are served, and the peaches and spices and crust intoxicate our tongues, and we all look down and chew, and lift our forks again, and lick our lips, and someone finally says, everyone got very quiet. When I sit tonight on my back porch and share the day's pie with my husband, I will tell him this. We will take in each bite like a tender gift. We will miss her. Thank you all. Love you. Thank you.
Ooh, I feel like I can just taste that pie. I feel like I can just taste that pie. And I'm the next reader, and in the spirit of pie, tasting that pie, I'm gonna read about tasting something that could be in a pie. This is a poem that was published in Sweden. I'm just going to read the one poem because I want to help make space for everybody keep us in the time frame today. This poem was published by Sweet. It's called The Taste of Blueberries. I live right down the street from a blueberry farm. I'm hoping to go pick them today. The Taste of Blueberries. Oh yes, it could have been another season of waking to the blueberries that swelled, ripened during the blue night, whole and full, when we did or didn't sleep, and when we could wake to rub our blurred eyes open and wash our hands clean of night and ripe for morning, and the ink of the blueberries that could write something over and over again from the tips of our fingers if we chose to rise and walk to the fields. And even if we never spoke there while picking, and even if our fingers bleeding blue never touched, we would know why we were here picking blueberries together in early morning underneath the bird songs and roosters' calls. And even if our lips never touched the taste of blueberries, they would be here too, with all of this wanting all the same. And the longer we stayed silent and the heavier our buckets became full, we would know we were here for this. But this was not that summer of blueberries, and neither was the last or the one before that. And I'm here choosing to pick blueberries all by myself, because the truth of what I'll never have this season or any other, unless you arrive begging for blueberry stained kisses, wakes me to these berries, makes up for every year we'll never have, and knowing that our lives were always meant for this. This fruit still blooms, delicious, inside my buried mouth. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Great to be able to share a poem today on Cultivating Voices with you. And next reading, we have one of my salmon brothers, Eamonn Lynskey. So great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us this evening. Yeah, Eamonn probably needs to unmute. There you go.
Did I unmute?
You're very
Okay.
good. You're very good. And congratulations on your newest collection as well. And we're looking forward to
Okay.
getting you scheduled too for a new book showcase in
Okay.
the future.
Right then, I have one poem. It's a longish poem, so we'll fill in the not quite 6 minutes. It's about an American diner. So my mother was a very avid film goer, and as children we were weekly visitors to the local cinema. So I became acquainted with great heroes or anti-heroes like Dana Andrews, James Cagney, Burt Lancaster, all the greats of that time in the post-World War II, black and white American gangster movies. But there was always a lunch counter in those movies or a diner, and it was often a scene of gangster shootouts. And then there was an exciting car chase afterwards. They were great days, and I wrote a poem called American Diner, which I wrote after I discovered one that was just like the ones I saw. It was an old lunch counter diner in Vermont. And I walked in and I really expected to see like Burt Lancaster, James Cagney in there, but it didn't happen. However, this is a poem called American Diner. Looks like you could pick it up and move it anywhere, some other town or city, if business wasn't brisk enough. Could even plonk it on a movie set, this self-contained American diner. Did it make its way to Castleton, Vermont, out of my torrid youth spent hanging around with Mickey Spillane and Otto Preminger? Inside, the scene is straight out of The Killers, Hemingway's great story. Cook and kid tied up together in the kitchen, waitress doing as she's told and acting normal as she lists me out the day's specials. Now, which of those mean-looking guys who sit up at the counter wait to nail the Swede? And is that Dana Andrews sipping coffee? And is that Alice Faye now swaggering over, swiveling up beside him on a stool and showing off those great legs? I take a seat along the window side so as I can keep an eye out for James Cagney, who's keeping both eyes out for me. A bit of money trouble, not to mention Rita Hayward, and who'll burst in any moment looking for the rat that double-crossed him, spot me right away and pull his gun. There will be shouts and screams. There will be frantic divings for the floor, but I've already seen his ugly mug across the parking lot as he dodged in and out between the Fords and Buick sedans. What happens next sure won't be pretty. But the eggs and bacon are delicious. Pancakes topped with maple syrup, simply awesome. And the waitress, chatty with the refills, businesslike, her pencil in her hair, her flirty, quick-fire repartee, amazing. And I have to say, she's playing up this walk-in, walk-off part so very well. She's bound to land a better old suit maybe something opposite Edward G. And what's the story with that handsome chap who took an end stool, leaving others empty near the till? I bet a couple of books that he's a plainclothes dick, or, well, the way he has of leaning forward, peering now and then across his paper. Bet he's casing up the joints or watching someone. That other guy now standing up to leave. Yep, handsome waits a couple of frames and then he's stubbing out a cigarette and strolling towards the exit, right hand moving towards his bulging pocket. Now I'm on the run myself with Cagney on my tail. I only want the bastard tearing down the highway, only one hand on the wheel, the other shot to bits. I'm wondering how I got mixed up in this when all I meant to say was, what a place where anyone from anywhere or even anyone from any time can walk in, find that everything is just as was, except in colour, not in black and white, no suits or neckties, smart fedora hats, but still the feeling if you took a stool along the counter, maybe Myrna Loy would sit beside you, cigarette unlit and giving you that look. No, better not, just order coffee. Try to shake the feeling that you're just another extra, hired to give this opening scene a bit of normal. Just before the door swings open, someone tries to bolt and bullets ricochet. Don't move. American diner sequences are short, precursors to the car chase. Customers who keep out of the way are safe, but still, it's best to avoid the seats along the counter. Take one by the window and watch the door. Thank you. That's me.
I absolutely love it. Kim knows this about me, but I have an absolute penchant for the diner, and I have many books here about American diners, and so what a treat to hear your take on the diner. Wow, terrific! Thank you so much, Eamonn. Well, next, joining, yeah, it was great. Next, I'm so glad, again, one of those poets who I've had just such a pleasure to be able to become friends with, talk about connections. I've been able to spend time in poetry group in Calgary with Josephine LoRe. So I'm so glad you're here today. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. The poetry today has been amazing, and Cait, your poems around Black Lives Matter and Every Child Matters were really gripping for me. Yesterday, I drove home from northern Alberta, and I drove through an area called Sunwapta, which is a Nakota word which means turbulent river. And I picked this up yesterday, and it's a mug, and it's a fundraiser, and it's for missing and murdered and forgotten Indigenous women. And yeah, so it's a Sioux artist named Maxine Knoll, and a part of the proceeds for the sales go towards the Native Women's Association of Canada. So thank you for touching on those points. That was very, very, for me, that was very touching. I'd like to read some new pieces that I wrote on my week away. This one is called Tireless Travail. To hear the wind and know there are no answers. To see dragonfly in flight, singly or paired, double-winged, blue, black, green. Butterfly of orange and rust, rainforest born. Another, black wings embroidered in white. To know that everything in this forest, this thousands shades of gray and brown, is living. And when these plants lay down their lives, they nurture the next. They are always alive. Yellow jackets, mosquitoes, flies, mushrooms, frilling mossy stumps, lily pads, golden smudges on the blackness of the surface of the pond. This pond created by beaver, the tireless travail of beaver, to know the pond, created by beaver, but not see beaver, to know God. The next is a series of tanka. So tanka is Japanese form, thank you. It's similar to haiku. Haiku is only 3 lines and tanka is 5. And this is a series of tanka. Lily pads wavering golden green, sun-kissed waters anchored to the lake bed, reaching for the lights. Wind buffeting, howling in my ears, whipping my hair, unmooring me, insinuating my dreams. Dog on the dock, sunlight dappling seagrass, dragonfly hovering, not long enough for a photo. Without paddle, without oar, this dock is my vessel, and I adrift on this windswept morning. Dragonfly alights on the sun-kissed caramel of your fur, double helixed, a momentary prayer. The wind carries all our wishes across open water to the waiting lips of far-off mountain gods. I drove home through smoke. Saturday was first non-clear day. And I want to read the poem that I composed on my drive home by recording snippets into my voicemail. But before I do, I had written one last year, Cait. I don't know if you've ever heard this one, Cait, but you had, the Rockies were on fire down in Colorado last year. And so I wrote this for you. Sister Fire, foothills shrouded in smoke that stings the eye as whir of blades cut up sky. We are sisters on 2 sides of an unseeable line. My Rockies flow south into your Rockies ablaze. The scurry of feet, flap of wing, acceleration of escape, mile after mile of forest burn, mile after mile. Water dropped from above, ash on your tongue and in your hair, in your bed. Whir of blade sliced the unseen sky, the sting in your eye, foothills shrouded in smoke. Someone reminded me that we didn't have any smoke in Alberta last summer. We certainly do this summer. BC, the province next door to us, is aflame and we're breathing their smoke. So the last piece I'd like to read is called Highway 93, August 14th. The forests next door ablaze, these mountains enveloped in shroud, 100-foot pines into fade into ever lighter shades of gray. In the impenetrable sky, glaciers regain their former majesty as the landscape dims into whispers of forgotten yesteryears. Thank you very much for the opportunity to read and to share.
So great to have you here today with us, Joe. Thank you. And yeah, the fires are like no joke, and we're having like such haze here too, and it's and of course when I was out east, the smoke from the California fires had come all the way out east to create haze and havoc, and so it is really quite a thing in a North American continent to continue to experience these ravages of climate change, and so take good care. Continue to take good care. Well, we go across the pond now to our good friend Cathal Mac Threinfhir. It's so great to have you. And I know you're going to be off screen on your audio only. Yep, I think we've got you. Yep, you can unmute.
On mute, okay.
Can
you hear me now?
There you go. There you go.
All
yes,
right.
You're very good.
Okay then. Great to be with you all tonight, and it's good to see you again, Sandy. And here we go. My first poem is entitled Homeland. Homeland. That space that falls between a sense of place and the marked footsteps of memory can lead by way of trick of fate to a wished for land of the heart where the home lies, where the water cupped from a woodland well tasted the sweetest, where the heat from the summer sun warmed softly on the skin, when the strength of youth was at its zenith, and the geography of the heart was mapped by native hill and field, by native stream and lake, and the murmuring, soft and low, of young friends in the purpling night of a warm summer, walking home from a townland dance, past the farmers' milk churns, set out in the fields like dolmen stones that we tipped gently over on their edges for a mouthful of milk to cut the evening's thirst. Home, to burnt days of hayseed air that rawed the lungs with every breath, to shaved fields of hay and baling twine. The dust motes dancing in the sunlight's afterglow, whose rays lingered lazily across the bar counter of a country pub, dimming to the measured tick of a smoke-browned wall clock. Here, in such a place, we spent our harvest wages. Sunburnt, we ached under every movement of our arms, every brush of our shirts against the blistered heat of our skins. Here, shaded now from the sun's heat, we gulped the apple smack of the first draught of cold cider from the cask. Now, in my time of remembering, the country tracks meander, stretching out before my mind's eye, embraced like the sleepy, overhanging trees, in a shining instant in the summer's haze, as the shadows of evening cool towards a golden moment of memory that is just in sight of the dreaming eye, homeland. And my next one is a short one. It's called The Unspoken Word. The unspoken word. The hours bled from one to the next and the days crept. Silence thundered like 1,000 sea-shelled oceans. Our own heart was held too close and for too long. Our defenses were strong and hammered in place lest rejection flooded in if breached. The chasm that lay between what was said and unsaid between us was deep and uncharted. There was no blame there that might be unscabbed to bleed anew. I alone had brought myself to this place of crucifixion by way of the sorrowed road of the unspoken word. And my next one is a poem called Salome, and it's based in part on the play by Oscar Wilde. It's called Salome. Salome, dance for me, the tetrarch said, with moist lips of dark-winged obsession made bitter, a sour taste upon the tongue, a hunger pain lingering on lip. She, Herodias' daughter, filled his eyes with untouched form, moving before him slowly, demanding his attention with each hip sway, firm-limbed in her youth. I will have her. Unto half my kingdom, all, anything she asks, I will yield her desire. All else had fallen away. Only her veiled eyes held his heart gaze. Jochanan, I will have his head in my hands, my tetrarch, before I dance for you this night. This you will promise before all who stand here in witness allied. This bloodied act you would ask of me this night. Sever the head of the prophet who lies in chains in the dark deep beneath me here, lest he cursed my soul. So the sword fell upon the neck of the seer. Jochanan, his bloodied head served on a dish of silver, but first she danced for the tetrarch, taunting his desire. For her youth, her nakedness before him lying, afterwards holding the severed head, she bit like fruit the prophet's crimson blood-staining lips, milking her hatred. Was it worth it, tetrarch of Judea's walls, for her body's glimpse through a veil of yearning? Yes, by that unholy pact it was worth it, to behold her beauty. Now, I don't know if I have time for a small one. If I don't, it's fine. How am I doing time-wise, Sandy? Anyway.
You probably have time for one short one.
I've got one short one, yeah. Okay. Move to memory. Move to memory. You move to memory now, lost in the past of time's fog. Your face no longer lingers in my mind. No more does your voice hold its sound to seduce my willing ear with whispering sighs to devour the center of me. It is shielded by time's law and uprooted now. It can no longer grow. You move to memory now. That's it. Thank you very much for listening to me. Back to you, Sandy. And we got it working fast.
We got it working. We got it working.
We got it
And
working. We have the technology. Okay, thanks everybody.
absolutely.
And a great evening for poetry. I've really enjoyed it.
A good night. A good night to you. Thank you. And always a pleasure to hear, as folks have said, that the beautiful hypnotic lull of your voice and the poems. Thank you. Well, we're gonna go through the whole list, so I'm gonna keep going quickly so that we can get everybody in and keep you all not too much longer this evening. And next is my dear salmon sister, Bertha Rogers. Thank you, Bertha, for joining us today.
My pleasure. What a great reading. Wow. I'm going to read a few poems from a chapbook that I did some years. It's about the murder of an old friend of mine. And the first poem is called The Fourth Beast, and it has an epigraph. After I saw in the night visions, and behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, which comes from the book of Daniel 7:7. She stood at the window, elbows bent, plotting nothing. The world had changed, light edged to inference. Still, serene, listening, she later claimed, for the tree frog's song, the odd howl of a coy dog. She saw two great eyes streaming out of the gloom. When questioned, she faltered. She saw something, a red tail, pulsing vein. The thing seemed to reel down her hill. Who encroached that smoking land, rode her soil so easily? The creature halted, lurched forward, and the woman said to the landing, now I must go out of light, but her feet would not lift, could not shuffle. In the morning, she effortlessly handed the blackness back to the window, which took it. Then, tormented by sudden sun, bulging heat, quartered shadows, she cowered. Evening returned, its sultry touch. An interval had slipped. A voice, plain, friendly. At that, she insisted. Her own voice woke, asked, how could 2 feet gripped by floorboards rouse the beast, glare gunned at glass? A laugh from beyond the screen, high night again. The animal crouched in his grim tower. He had leapt up, she was sure, from earth's cluttered crust, sight pointed at her breast. She tensed and listened, heard no more. The blaze had gone. Wait, she called, I'm coming. And the second one is called Interior at Night. Found composition, body, floor, lights out, windows dark, earlier, evening sun crosshatched the. She with her cats, her last anguish owned by the predator. Did she call out mother, struggle as she went? Was she amazed? The cats backed away from the bloody shaft. Body's face, its walled eyes, keening. Did the cats pat the still flesh? She planned a drawing, Christmas cards at twilight. She swept the floor, cleaned the table, poured wine for 2. She telephoned a friend. Did the cats, did they tongue the blade, shank, paw her lips? They parted her hair, pleaded her return. Did she sketch, open Christmas cards at dusk, face flushed in the amber glow? Uncork a bottle of California red, sweep the floor. She sponged the table, set out 2 glasses, body on parquet, eyes blind, fingers splayed, shadow coming light as in a painting. The windows shone vermilion. And I will sing it any key. And the last one of this series is called Last Request. The dentist drills, bone burns, motes want sluggish air. It's you, your marrow. Think how it will be when at last the body's declared deceased and gurneyed to the incinerator, impound of churn and flash, your bits sparkling over Manhattan, say, or Los Angeles. The residue, a carton of pumice and shards handed to your executor with instructions, fling me. But she's busy and inconclusive. She deposits you on her closet shelf, soon overlooked among outdated sweaters and worn sheets, or in the attic, its ventilator shriller than your bones' complaints. What's this? The next generation cries and tosses the particles in the garbage. Then the hell you hoarded, a life's charged anger, is released. Doors fly off hinges, vinegar spills, windows craze. You're forced to hire a priest to pacify what's left, because in death's sequestered season, you've mastered staying put, your shrouded milieu as spacious as the prairie you abandon, boundless like eternity. Thank you. Thanks.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing those poems. Wow, you'll see in the chat, like, yeah, just the kind of the haunting images and really bringing what obviously the horrific experience, particularly losing your friend, but to bring that story so vividly to our consciousness. Wow, fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Bertha. Always great when you are with us sharing your work, such a range of poetry that you write, incredible. Well, our first of our final three readers, it's always a joy and a privilege and honor to be able to have Patrick Lodge join us. Great to see you this evening. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Good to be here. And thank you very much indeed. It's a great pleasure to share the night with such good poets. I think if you can hear me, I can get two poems in quickly, if that's all right. Okay, the first one's called Slán Abhaile, which literally means, I think, safe home, a common parting statement in Ireland, a wish for a destination safely achieved. And my family left Kinsale in County Cork in 1927 and ended up in Barrydock, South Wales. And who knows where I belong? I certainly don't. So this is called Slán Abhaile. Always I am the emigrant, at sea, fathomless, no questions, no answers. Sea buoys me up as long as I move, gives me passage, can't see land, stern or bow. I sail, never arriving, can't recall leaving. I'm not alone. Ghosts of those I knew, some I never knew, stare as I leave, as I approach too. I have a claim to stake. There is the blood litany to chant, one drowning, chasing the herring, one marching to fife and drum, he took the Queen's shilling, and more. The women too, stunted in exile, like the scrap of shamrock flown in annually, buried in foreign earth, never rooting. They were shortchanged, exchanging the long quay for Dockview Road, a wild Atlantic way for a channel going nowhere. Those ghosts call, waving shreds of histories, scraps of charts, like handkerchiefs fluttering at a quayside. They mouth, Slán Abhaile, Slán Abhaile, as if I might comprehend, as if arriving I should know I'm there, home. If I was lost on this sea, washed up, what would they look for? The cleft on the chin, the green eyes must have come from somewhere. The quick red temper, the sadness seen in most things. Whose are these? I have always found a way out, but never a way back in. And the second one I'll read is prompted really by the poem that Cait read earlier. This is called Requiem for the People of Doggerland. For those that don't know, Doggerland is the name which was given to the fertile landmass that joined the British Isles. I'm currently in Yorkshire, the British Isles to mainland Europe in the Mesolithic period. And it was home to a thriving population, but it was drowned by rising seas following warming at the end of the Ice Age. And it was finally inundated by a tsunami, which followed the Storegga landslip off Norway around about 6,000 years BC. I suppose the poem's about people carrying on and aware that a disaster is going to destroy the world they knew. It's called Requiem for the People of Doggerland. At least they wouldn't have known what lay ahead for their paradise of abundance. This was no mere land bridge, no way station to elsewhere. It was heartland, a landscape made animate by myth and story. Children cherished, families sustained, ancestors buried, cross-legged in grave, heavy claim of earth. Maybe all observed, curiously, the sea's greedy gavotte until the kiss on the shore was more teeth than lips. Each tide subtly scalloping the strand further, exchanging topography for a deluge of seawater, drowning lake, river, lagoon in brackish salt. The engulfing surge purged the known world. Navigators' nous, learned over generations, made redundant overnight. Horizons became distant smudges, tokens of the bitter divorce of land from sky. No one could bank on anything anymore. The doomed relicts, chewing over ancient stories of the plenty that had passed through, could only wait for the final slide out of the picture. No doubt they called on what gods they had, incanting the lost lands while pressing deep into the peat bogs, pottery, antler tools, flints, practical objects, the warm sheen of daily use still on them, whose loss was deeply felt. It was a necessary prophylactic, ritual against a lapping advanced guard, the ruthless insurgency of the rebel waves. These solemn deposits wrote a grimoire of futile magic to contradict the sea's unceasing incoming. They laid down their future too, a precious child, dead, but coddled on a swan's wing in hope that spirit might soar, blameless and pure, above the drowning world. They buried it tenderly, keening aloud, as if all knew they were losing this game, that this land, whose memory and future was only water, vanished, even as they sang. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and always evocative poems that you bring to us here at Cultivating Voices, and remembering, of course, one of the readings from when you did your new book showcase from the latest collection, Patrick's latest collection, Remarkable Occurrences. So great to have you with us. Thank you. Well, again, we're down to our final two readers for today. We're going to finish out with Scott Norman Rosenthal, and then our final reader will be Cait Webrzyn.
Prayer over war in the Mideast for Maurice Bishop and Milton Rosenthal. The hearts of people shine like jewels Wind winds through sand dunes and across waters into cheap restaurants in South Jersey, in the US. 2, all notes ring false which deny that the crops must grow. All words deceive that do not heal. Children crying in the night for sleep. That was spring '91. Poem on 6 birthdays, spring 1990, for Pat Lyons, Karen Fitzer, et al. We suffer agony we haven't recalled in some time. But the evening is beautiful, and the idols that grope, that scrape the belly of the sky, remind us that the whole earth is home. For Circle X, hairiest race, et al. Our fingers will not hold the spinning world. The sound of dwarves laboring in caves is music. The hearts of people burst into volcanoes out of the center of the earth. Spring '91. In Night, for Sue King and for Eric Toy. Guilt stops the opening of our small houses. We sweat, we wrestle intruders, we discover angels and the morning sky. Winter '91. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. What poems this kaleidoscope of poetry from around the world tonight and today. All right, Cait, you're going to take us all home for your final set. And thank you everyone for staying a little longer so that we could get a few more poets in today. Much appreciated. And
Talk about connections. Oh my goodness. So my daughter and her beau went away for 2 weeks, and I said, this is it. I could take over the whole house. And I did, because I have to prepare for quintessential listening. And as I did, I emptied everything out all over my daughter. My goddaughter checked in to see how I was doing, and there was no place to sit, not anywhere in the house, not even for a mouse. Oh my gosh. So what did I do? I said, oh my goodness, I forgot a submission. I have to race in and get this submission sent in. And I pulled on the blinds, and the blinds fell off, and they hit the lamp, and the bulb burst, and everything went flying all over. And I said, oh my God, I'm never going to make Cultivating Voices. And I missed my only second Cultivating Voices last Sunday. This Sunday, I said, I'm going to get on. I'm going to get on. You got to get me on. So what I did is I discovered I have been writing for decades, and I'm trying to chew it down. So here, if you can see, oh, Cait, come on, you could do it. Up, it's not upside down. See the mermaid? I went to Ireland in 2000. Me sister and me mum. 10 days that changed my life. I'm going to have to become back to the Irish island again soon. That was in 2000. And I started communicating with a woman that took tours to Ireland, Amantha Murphy. And she had a Celtic Journey photo number 9. And I just found this very old piece of paper. And behind me, that way, is my bedroom filled with boxes that I've sorted out between the indigenous Indian of this land and of the wonderful African-American people and the Celtic people. And I have books of everything. But then I thought today, I will just read this one thing I wrote in honor also of John Wilmot, who is the man of the trees, the man of the bard in Ireland. I've been communicating with him and his wife Claire forever. And I wrote this to this Celtic journey photo before I understood what ekphrastic poetry was, or even poetry for that matter. Spark my heart, flame the memory. Old trees return to the earth. New canopy surrounds the elder ground. Rains bring forth the greenery row. Moss and fern abundantly grow. Magic turns my head over my shoulder. Behind me, the elder father tree, all on his own. Forward I gate. I am blind. Low branches beckon through a path to find standing stones in circle, canopy surrounding the tree shrine. I'll be back, Ireland, and I'm coming to see all of you. Huh? Don't forget me. And I will be meeting each other at the door with hugs and kisses if you'll ever let us U.S. states people in again, because we didn't abide. We didn't abide, and we're the worst yet. So don't blame me for closing the doors on us. But when I get there, we're going to have a good time, and I'll be doing a dance, yeah, and singing a song. Whew, yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to try to follow you on that flight. Try to take the same flight. Thank you.
We ought to book ahead.
We ought to. Well, everybody, I want to thank you all for being with us today. And Cait, only me, I'm glad you're here. I missed you last week. I wasn't sure. I thought I was in a dream when I didn't see. I was like, oh, this can't be the show because Cait's not here. But you're back. Great to have you back. Everybody, we heard today, and I'm glad we were able to get everyone in on the wild card live open mic. We started out with Ann McDonald. You heard from Ann, David, Susan, Jeff, Cait, Larry, Kim, yours truly, Eamonn, Josephine, Cathal, Bertha, Patrick, Scott, and we closed with Cait Webrzyn. Well, everyone, this reading today truly reinforced really the power of what Cultivating Voices has been over all this time now, and harkened back to those early days for me when folks were joining us for the live open mic and we didn't know who we would hear, except today's reading showed the generosity and the power of those connections over time. I didn't know that that's what we would display today through the reading, but so many of you were able to evoke that from reading about and telling stories about connecting with other folks on Cultivating Voices, as well as the very fact of you being here today showed the connection. So thank you one and all for your readings in the wild card. How about we unmute for a moment just for a very brief round of applause for all of our readers today. Thank you. Fantastic reading, everyone. What an amazing thing. Wow, loved it. Well, let me tell you just a few brief closing announcements. If you have any upcoming readings or announcements, this would be a great time to put those in the chat. About upcoming readings this week or anything you'd like to share with the group. I want to remind you all to please join us back here next Sunday for our final new book showcase of August, another kaleidoscope of poets, as we had quite a grand kaleidoscope today. We'll be joined next week with Hilda Raz, Jehan Dubrow, Alana Bell, and Minnie Bruce Pratt. It's truly a reading that you will not want to miss out on. And please join us 2 weeks from today for a special event reading on Sunday, August 29th, we're going to be joined from Blue Light Press editor Diane Frank and the poets from her anthology called Fog and Light, Poems About San Francisco. That's why I told Jeff, be here on the 29th, Poems About San Francisco. Well, everybody, a reminder to all register on our event pages each week to join us live here in Zoom, or of course, continue to watch us live from our Facebook group page. Again, I'm just so thrilled that all of you were able to come out today. And just on a personal note, I was having a difficult week. My dad was in the hospital, and a number of you sent me good wishes, and our family good wishes, and my sister. And I just want to thank you all for sending out the love our way and making today such a hearty experience to kind of feed my soul. My dad's doing better and is home now. Thank you to each and every one of you, and thanks to Don Krieger, of course, always behind the scenes here, helping out with our production. We couldn't do this without Don every single week, as well as Kim Ports Parsons, for not only her vivid images and her poetry that we heard today, and delicious pie, but also for those graphics that allure us to the readings every single week. Well, as I always like to say, our humanity depends on our deep, and because he's in the room, Michael Anthony Ingram, quintessential listening of one another. And we were able to certainly enjoy that and benefit today from hearing the poems of all of you. I look forward to the next time we're together. Please take care of yourselves and your beloveds. And of course, keep connecting with one another and keep writing. I'm going to sign off pretty quickly to go pick some blueberries. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Take care, Sandy.
So glad to have you with us tonight.